Have you ever asked yourself, will I die? You probably think that someday your time will come when your body just gives out. Or maybe a disease will take you away. Well, what if I told you that death from aging doesn't have to be an inevitability? What if it's not something you're fated to face, but rather a disease that can be treated, cured, and maybe even prevented? In this video, I will reveal the shocking truth about the science of aging and how close we are to living for a long period. Okay, so first things first, let's get into why we age in the first place. Is getting old just something that happens to us all because it's part of the natural order of the universe? Or is there something more going on at a cellular level that makes our bodies run down over time? Well, the truth is that aging is actually a series of cellular and molecular damages that cause our bodies to decline. This means that theoretically, if we could understand these processes well enough, we could find ways to slow them down or even reverse them altogether. So what exactly are these hallmarks of aging? First up, we've got telomere shortening. Our chromosomes are like little strings of beads that hold all of our genetic information. And those beads are called These nucleotide chains are capped off by something called a telomere, which acts kind of like the plastic tips that keep shoelaces from fraying. But here's the thing, every time a cell divides, those telomeres get a little bit shorter. And when they get too short, the cell can't divide anymore, and eventually it dies or becomes, which is another hallmark of aging. But wait, there's more. As cells get older, they can also become senescent, also known as zombie cells. These cells don't actually die, but they also don't really divide. Instead, they just hang out in your body, causing trouble for their neighbors. They can mess with the tissue around them, causing inflammation and generally just being a pain in the old cell. Then there's mitochondrial dysfunction. Your cells have these things called mitochondria, which are like the powerhouses of the cell that make energy. But as we age, those mitochondria start to get damaged and less efficient, which can lead to more damage and dysfunction in the cell. And let's not forget about DNA damage. Over time, our DNA takes a beating from environmental factors like UV radiation and just normal wear and tear. All of that damage starts to accumulate, and it messes with our cells' ability to function properly, leading to more aging. So basically, aging is not like a river that flows inexorably to the sea. It's more like a house that needs maintenance. If you ignore it, the house will eventually fall apart. But if you fix the roof when it starts leaking and deal with that mold right away, the house should last for years. In other words, aging is not fate. It's a solvable biological problem. Now that we know why we age, let's talk about some of the cool research that's happening to try to combat it. Here are some real breakthroughs in the world of anti-aging science. Some scientists are developing drugs called Senolytics that target senescent cells, basically killing them off before they can do too much damage. Others are using CRISPR and other gene editing tools to repair damaged DNA or genes that are related to aging. Still, others are working on ways to use stem cells to regenerate damaged tissues. And then there's stuff like Metformin and Rapamycin, which are drugs that are typically used to treat other conditions, but have also been shown to slow down aging in some organisms. That's because they mimic the effects of fasting, which has been shown to extend lifespan. Finally, some researchers are looking at ways to extend those telomeres so that they don't get so short that the cells can't divide anymore. For example, there's a certain enzyme called Telomerase that keeps adding DNA to telomerase, which could potentially stop them from shortening. So all of these different approaches are being actively researched to turn back the clock on aging. And the best part is that they're not mutually exclusive. In theory, you could use a combination of these techniques to have a big impact on aging. So now that we know how we age and some of the cool research that's happening to try to fight it, let's answer the big question. Can humans live forever? Well, here's the thing. Immortality, like never dying, hasn't happened yet. But does that mean it never will? Some researchers believe that it's only a matter of time before we figure out how to significantly extend lifespan. For example, David Sinclair, a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School, has said that he believes it's possible for humans to live much longer than they do now, beyond 100 or 120 years. And that's not just some fringe idea either. There are plenty of scientists who think that it's plausible that we'll be able to live much longer lives in the future. Of course, it doesn't mean we'll be immortal, but it does mean that we could live much longer and healthier lives than we do now. And that's not a bad thing. Who wouldn't want to live a few hundred years or more? If it meant that they could still be active, engaged, members of society, and enjoy all of the things that life has to offer. It's also important to note that there's a difference between living longer and living better. Just because we can live for hundreds of years doesn't mean that we'll be happy or fulfilled. But there's no reason why we couldn't also live healthier, more active lives for longer than we do now. That's what we mean when we talk about extending health span, which is the length of time that we spend living without disability or disease. There's a lot of research on both longevity and health span, and it's pretty clear that we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. So what are the limitations to all this? Is there anything that could prevent us from achieving immortality, or even just extending lifespan and health? Well, there are a few things that could limit our ability to age indefinitely. First, there's the complexity of biology. Even if we could eliminate all of the factors that contribute to aging, there's no guarantee that it would lead to immortality. After all, we're made up of trillions of cells that all have to work together in a really complex system. And even if we could fix all of the problems that cause those cells to break down, there's no guarantee that it would prevent us from dying from something else, like a sudden illness or injury. Then there's the cost. Research into aging and longevity is expensive, and it's likely to get even more expensive as we learn more about the biology of aging and develop new interventions to target it. It's unclear whether individuals or governments will be willing to invest the money necessary to develop and deploy these interventions, especially if they're not seen as a priority. What about ethics? Is it ethical to try to extend human lifespan? What about access to this kind of technology? Will it only be available to the rich and powerful? What about overpopulation or the potential for even greater social inequality? These are all important questions that need to be considered as we move forward with aging research. We're at the forefront of a new and exciting frontier of scientific discovery. The science of aging is rapidly advancing, and we're learning more about the biology of aging than ever before. With this knowledge, we have the potential to develop interventions that can significantly extend lifespan, which is the length of time that we spend living without disability or disease. However, there are also a lot of challenges that we need to overcome if we're going to achieve this goal. We need to do more research to better understand the biology of aging and develop effective interventions. We also need to consider the ethical implications of aging research and make sure that everyone has access to the benefits of this technology. So the question is, what do you think? Is it ethical to try to extend human lifespan? Do you think everyone should have access to this kind of technology? Let us know in the comments below. And like this video if you like science and technology. Subscribe this channel.